Welcome to my mod Aki's account review, and in today's video I'm going to judge how well his characters are built and basically talk about the things on his account that he can improve on. Of course, the things that I say are all my opinion, and if you have any suggestions for him yourself, please feel free to leave a comment and I'll let him know. Now before I start, you have to keep in mind that Aki's in school like me, and normally speaking you wouldn't have as much time as I do to grind Genshin, and that is most likely why some of his characters aren't built as well as mine. I hope you guys can be understanding and look at his characters from his point of view. Honestly, he's probably revising again as we speak, so yeah, let's jump into the account review. Let's start with his Yae Miko. As you can see here, he has quite a lot of attack, 1.8k, and the elemental mastery is not that bad actually, especially when paired with Nahido can give you a maximum of 250 EM with her burst. So let's go and check out the detailed stats. Okay, 76% crit rate and 163% crit damage. That's a decent enough ratio. I guess maybe the crit damage can be a tiny bit higher, but we'll have to go to the artifacts and check out later. She also has 46.6% electro damage bonus, which is nice. And let's go on to the weapons then. So he's running the Witsif. Oh, and it's also at refinement rank 3. I'd say this weapon is probably one of the best 4-star weapons out there for Yae Miko. As you can see here, the attack bonus or the elemental damage bonus or even the elemental mastery bonus is quite nice. It doesn't really matter which one you get because all three bonuses are quite nice for Yae Miko. Let's go on to the artifacts then. Let's start with the flower as usual, but before that let's talk about the set bonus. So he has 2-piece Gullet Dreams and also 2-piece Wanderer Troop, so he gets an extra 160 elemental mastery from just the set bonus alone. As for the flower, 10% crit rate and 15% crit damage plus a tiny bit of EM to top it up. Decent enough piece. For the feather, ooh, I guess it rolled a tiny bit too much into EM, and the crit rate as a result is quite low. CV wise, that is around the high 20s, so it's still usable. For the sands, same story I guess as the feather. The EM is nice, and the flat attack, that's like the only down point about this piece. The crit rate and crit damage can both be a bit higher, but for the goblet, although there might not be crit rate and crit damage, and the crit damage is quite low, as in I think it's two minimum rolls. Yeah, I guess it's a decent enough piece. I would run this on Yae Miko if I didn't have any other good pieces on her. Let's go into the final artifact, the circlet. So, ooh, the 13.4% HP though. Yeah, I would want to avoid that at all costs, to be honest. It's quite a bad piece, this one. I mean, you do have 61 EM, which is nice. And to a certain extent, you can say 9.9% attack. That's also a bonus. Energy recharge isn't really that useful though because he has C1. So yeah, I guess this piece is quite bad. Overall, I'd rate his artifacts maybe a 6.5 out of 10. Certainly there are things that he can improve on, like the circlet, but other pieces are usable because he's using Yae Miko as a hyperbloom on-field driver, so the 2-piece bonus, they're alright I guess. Moving on to constellations, he does have C1, which means that he gets a maximum of 24 energy for every single time the burst is used, which is why he isn't really running that much energy recharge on her. Yeah, 117 only. C1 is a nice thing to have because you don't have to worry about energy that much, but you still need to have a tiny bit of energy recharge, and also you'd want to run Yae Miko in a team that gives you quite the amount of energy just in case if she doesn't get her burst on cooldown. As for talents, 188. Ooh. I'd say it'd be better for him if the normal attack is leveled up a bit more, because level 1, that's not good for an on-field driver. You'd want to deal a tiny bit more damage whilst also proccing the hyperbloom reactions. As you can see, the scaling isn't that good for a level 1 normal attack on Yae Miko, and so that needs a bit of improvement. For the other two talents, level 88, I guess he hasn't been farming domain, so yeah, he doesn't even have any of the books, nor the hand guards, so yeah, that's acceptable. Overall, I'd say his Yae Miko is, on a scale of 10, I'd say his Yae Miko is around maybe a 7 out of 10. There's still improvements that he can do, especially with his artifacts. He can definitely fix them, and also just leveling up a bit of Yae Miko's normal attack by a few levels should do. I think the next one that we should do should be Xiao or Hu Tao. Let's do Xiao first. 2.6k attack on first glance, and the HP, I guess his Xiao doesn't die too often with 19k HP, so that's quite nice. Moving on to the detailed stats, 82% crit rate and 187% crit damage. That's a nice ratio, around like a 1 to 2. The crit rate definitely is nice, and the crit damage, I guess it can be a bit higher. Certain people might find it more comfortable to play with 70% crit rate and above 200% crit damage. It really does depend from person to person, but I guess he's comfortable with this, so that's a nice crit ratio. As for energy recharge, he has 104%. Although I don't play Xiao, I know that Xiao does sort of have a slight energy problem. Unless if Sucrose is on the same team as Xiao, I think he would be facing a tiny bit of energy problem every single time. A bit more energy would be nice here then. Xiao mains, just let me know how much ER is suitable for a Xiao like this. He does have only 15% Anemo damage bonus, which means that he's not running a Nemo Goblet, which is weird, I guess, because you would want to run a Nemo damage bonus over anything else for Xiao. Let's go into the weapons then. Onto the weapons, he is running Xiao's signature weapon, the Wing Spear. For this polearm, you do get around 20% crit rate, and the passive, that's alright I guess. You do get quite a tiny bit of attack bonus here. If he wants to run a 4-star option instead, then maybe the deathmatch would do, because you do get a tiny bit more crit rate, around 10% more. But you do have to keep in mind that you are losing around 100 attack. Yeah, 660 to 450. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Onto his artifacts. Set bonus wise, he is running a 2-piece Gladiator and 2-piece Viridescent, so he does get the 15% Anemo damage bonus and also a free 18% attack. Let's check out his artifacts individually then. Flower, I'd say you do have quite the amount of energy recharge, and the crit ratio is quite nice on this one. You do get around 30 something CV, so I'd say this piece is a nice one. For the feather, same story I guess, but the defense can be a tiny bit lower if possible. It rolled into it at least once, so if it rolled into crit rate or crit damage another time, then it'd be sitting above 40 CV, but oh well, sometimes luck can't be on your side all the time, and I guess this is one of those occasions. Sans, ooh, for him I'd say this Sans isn't the best, but it's still usable, you know, if we are looking from his account's point of view. The thing is, he does have 30 CV on this goblet piece. The only bad thing I'd say is that it has attack percent instead of a Nemo damage bonus. In general, I'd say this piece is definitely very good on Xiao, but it'd be better if it was a Nemo damage bonus. At least that's what I think. For the circlet, okay, I guess you do have 12% crit rate and around 15% energy recharge. Overall, I'd say I'll rate Xiao's artifacts 7 out of 10. The reason why it's not 8 or above is solely because of how he's not running an Anemo damage bonus goblet, but I'm not really sure whether you should be running a Nemo damage bonus or attack percent. As for constellation, C0 of course, and for talent, 1088. It is decent enough, especially how he has crowned his normal attack. Maybe it'd be better if he crowned the burst instead, as you can see here, from 86 to 90%. Overall, I'd say his Xiao on a scale of 10, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. Yeah, let's move on to the next character then. Let's move on to Hu Tao then. So on first glance, Hu Tao does have 35k HP with quite a nice amount of elemental mastery, and I'd say the attack, it might be a bit low, but it's still usable. As for the crit ratio and all the other detailed stats, 74% crit rate and 211% crit damage, I guess that is nice, so I can't really complain there. Energy recharge might be a bit low if he wants to use Hu Tao's burst every single time her E is activated, but I'm not sure because I haven't really been playing Hu Tao lately, and he does have around 60% power damage bonus, which is nice. Let's move on to the weapon then. So his Hu Tao is running the deathmatch. I guess it is a really nice weapon for her, 4-star wise. Besides, I guess, Staff of Homer. Moving on to the artifacts, he is running the 2-piece Crimson Witch and 2-piece Tenacity. Not sure why he isn't running 4-piece Crimson Witch of Flames, but I guess maybe he hasn't been farming that domain lately. Moving on to Hu Tao's individual artifacts, I'd say for the flower, it's quite nice. 15% HP, and also the crit value isn't that bad. I'd say this piece is quite decent, but it'd be better if the crit rate or crit damage is a tiny bit higher. For the feather, ooh, it's actually quite a decent piece for this one. I think that is around 40 CV. Yeah, that is quite nice of a feather then. The stance that Aki has on his Hu Tao is quite nice as well. I think that's around 30 CV, and there's also a tiny bit of elemental mastery at 16. Overall, I'd say this piece is actually quite nice as well. As for the goblet, I mean, it is a decent piece and I don't think we can ask for more. As for the circlet, 13% energy recharge, crit rate 5.8, and 56 elemental mastery for crit damage main stack circlet. I'd say it's decent enough, not gonna lie. In general, I'd say Hu Tao's artifacts out of 10 is a solid maybe 6.5 out of 10, simply because personally I wouldn't be running 2-piece tenacity over 4-piece Crimson Witch. Let's move on to the constellations then. So C0 for his Hu Tao, just like mine. Let's go on to talents then. And it is at 9, 8, 10. So in general, I'd say his Hu Tao is maybe out of 10, a decent maybe 7 out of 10 as well, just like his Yae Miko. And let's move on to the next character then. So on first glance, 41k HP, that's not a lot, but at the same time I think that is enough to already have an indestructible shield. Let's go to Zhongli's detail stats then. So, okay, 67% crit rate, I think that is nice. It should be enough to proc the passive of Euphonious Lance every single time Aki uses Zhongli's E. Energy recharge is a bit low, but to be honest, if you're only using Zhongli as a shield character, then energy recharge isn't really needed. As long as the shield has 100% uptime, energy recharge isn't that important unless you do want to use Zhongli's burst from time to time. For weapon, he is using the Black Tassel to get that 46.9% HP. Let's go on to the artifacts then. So he is running the 4-piece tenacity. Let's check out the pieces of artifacts that Aki is running on his Zhongli then. So for the flower, I guess the attack, it is nice, and similar to his feather, and similar to the flower, I'd say maybe instead of EM, energy recharge would be better. As for the sands, it is an HP main stat one with 10% crit rate and 11% defense. For the goblet, it is still an HP one. One thing I do have to say is maybe energy recharge instead of elemental mastery would be nice. For the circlet, okay, he does have 20% HP on this one, so I can't really say anything bad about this piece. Overall, I'd say Zhongli's artifacts, I'll give it a solid 8 out of 10 because it is still quite a good Zhongli. After all, we're talking about a Zhongli whose main purpose is to provide a shield for the on-field DPS. So yeah, let's move on to the constellations. C0, and for the talents, 6, 8, 8. In general, I think I would give Aki's Zhongli a solid 8 out of 10. Simply because I have seen him play with his Zhongli and the shield is actually quite durable. And to be honest, we are talking about Zhongli whose shield is the best in the game, and 41k HP, although it might not be the most, his shield is so strong that you practically don't really need to invest that much into his HP to get a decent enough shield. On to the next character, I think we're going to do Nahida. So on first glance, okay, he does have 800 EM so that he can maximize Nahida's passive talent, in which when Nahida's burst is on field, a maximum of 250 EM is given to the on-field character. As for the attack, 1.1k, I think it is a tiny bit lower than mine, but at the same time 1.1k, it is enough for her ease damage to be quite high, 20 something k around that area, so that is still acceptable. As for the detailed stats, now the crit rate is quite low, I'd say. 20%, you should have a tiny bit more, although you do get around 24% crit rate from one of her Ascension talents, you should still keep it around 40% around that area. The crit damage might be low here, but you do get around, I think, 30% crit damage from the same passive that I just mentioned. So Aki isn't running a Dendro Goblet on his Nahida, but he still has 15%, which means that he has the 2-piece Deep Woods at least. Let's go on to her weapon now. So the Sack Frags, yes, which is, in my opinion, one of the best 4-star options for Nahida, especially since it gives you a whopping 200 EM, even though it is only a 4-star weapon. And although the passive might seem quite useless on Nahida, it might be nice to, you know, skip that 6 or 5 seconds cooldown from time to time. As for artifacts, he is running the 4-piece Deep Wood memory set, which means that he does get that 30% Dendro resistant shred, and also a 15% Dendro damage bonus. For the artifacts that he is running on his Nahida, the flower, I'd say the elemental mastery on this piece is nice, sitting at 54. The crit damage and crit rate can be a little bit higher, but it's still a decent piece overall. For the feather, 10% crit rate, a tiny bit of elemental mastery, and also a decent amount of energy recharge, so this feather is also decent as well. For the sands, he is running an EM1, but the substats aren't that good in my opinion. You do have a tiny bit of energy recharge, but that is it. So I'd say if he can improve on this piece and maybe get one with crit rate and crit damage, and I think this piece will be solved. As for the goblet, okay now. As for the goblet, an EM main stat 1, but it is not fully leveled up. I have a feeling that this is possibly the worst piece on all of the characters that I have reviewed so far. Let's check his final piece of artifact on Nahida then, the circlet. Okay, so he is running triple EM then. And this piece, the substats on this piece isn't the best. 11.7% crit damage and the rest of the stats are quite useless, to be honest. Overall, I'd say I'd rate Nahida's artifacts on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe 5 out of 10. And let's go on to the constellations then. C0, unlike mine, who is at C1 with talent 166. The thing is, he still hasn't done the Archon quest yet, which means he can't really get the boss materials to upgrade Nahida's talents past level 6. Overall, I'd rank Aki's Nahida, and we have to put into consideration that he still hasn't completed the Archon quest yet, which is why the talent levels are a tiny bit low. Out of 10, I think I would give Nahida 6.5 out of 10. I think the final character that we're going to reveal is going to be Bennett, as he has said that all of his other characters aren't really built and he doesn't really want to show them to you guys. Alright, as you can see here, 1.1k attack. I think it is quite high, and the amount of attack that he has on his Bennett is probably higher than what I have on mine. Other than attack, the only other stat that we care about on Bennett is probably energy recharge, which is at 206% in this case. Crit rate, a bit more of that would be great, but at the same time, it isn't really that necessary. All Bennett has to do is place his Q down, and his job is essentially done. Let's go to weapon then. Aquila Faphonia, so 674 base attack. I think it's the best weapon for Bennett, 5-star wise, in terms of giving Bennett the most base attack. Sadly, Bennett can't fully utilize the passive of this weapon, but it is what it is, and let's move on to the artifacts. So for artifacts, he is running a 4-piece Noblesse Oblige, which means that party members after Bennett uses his Q gets an extra 20% attack for 12 seconds. So for the flower, it's not fully leveled up, but I guess you do get 5.2% energy recharge. Besides that, all the other stats are quite useless on Bennett. As for the feather, not leveled up at all. Level it up Aki, and if it rolls into energy recharge, same story as the flower, then this would be a decent enough piece. For the stance that Aki is running on Bennett, it has energy recharge as its main stat. The crit rate and crit damage is sort of nice as like a bonus for Bennett. The goblet is not leveled up, but it does have 6.5% energy recharge. Moving on to the circlet, overall I'd say this piece is decent, simply because you do have 20% crit damage along with the energy recharge. In general, I would give the artifacts that Aki has put on his Bennett maybe a solid 6 out of 5. I'm not really that picky with Bennett's artifacts because all that matters about Bennett is the base attack and energy recharge. For constellations, it is at C4. When Aki unlocks C5, I think that is when his Bennett will truly shine, because you do get an extra 3 levels for his burst. And for talents, 2, 6, 10. I can't really say anything bad about the talent levels because Bennett's Q is what matters the most for him. In general, I think I'd rate this Bennett 5 out of 10 because the base attack is quite nice and he is running the 5-star weapon with the most base attack. I think all he needs to do to make his Bennett a bit better is to invest a bit more time onto his artifacts, and I think that is it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and sorry about not being able to showcase more characters on Aki's account. It'd be a waste of time to reveal unbuilt level 20 characters that he doesn't use, so that's why. I'm interested in seeing him review my account, but we'll have to wait until next time when his exams are over. Like and subscribe if you found this sort of new content interesting, and see you in the next one. Bye!